coming up on Lawmakers. Governor Sonny Perdue announces the details of his eminent domain legislation aimed at protecting the rights of property owners. The DUI bill causes debate in Senate committee. And a look at a program designed to help disabled children and why more and more families have been denied the Katie Beckett waiver. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Gerald, Bryant, and Nwandi, Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also on Lawmakers, the Senate passes a bill to create a child protection registry on the internet.
And the House approves Taser Certification Act requiring training and education for those who carry taser weapons. But our lead story tonight, the governor's plans for the power of eminent domain. Governor Sonny Perdue announced eminent domain legislation today, which he says grants more land rights to private property owners. David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with some of the details. David.
Well, Nwandi, Governor Perdue says this legislation is the necessary response to a federal court case held last year in Connecticut that allows property to be seized in favor of a more profitable development. Store owner Mark Meeks of Stockbridge, Georgia, has been fighting his local government since June of last year. Senator Jeff Chapman of Brunswick, Georgia, has been working with the Meeks family since June of '05.
Abuse of eminent domain can really hurt a family. Overall, that they could potentially have a loss of $500,000 and a loss of income from a business that they've been operating for years now.
If this city center comes in, all the property in the surrounding area would increase 2- and 3-fold. But at whose expense? It's our property now that they're taking so other people can make money, off of the property.
We live with this day and night, for the last 2 years, and it's more than people should have to bear in America to be attacked by your city government. They should be there to help us, not to take our property.
Governor Perdue says this constitutional amendment would better define the term blighted property, remove eminent domain power from non-elected officials, and enforce other statutes that would prohibit the use of eminent domain solely for economic development purposes or to increase tax revenue.
And I ask that our legislators to submit a personal or property protection amendment to the voters of Georgia for their approval and to return a strong bill to my desk that reflects the will of Georgians that their government must always respect the personal property rights of our citizens.
The Meeks family have also worked with Senator Emanuel Jones, who announced 2 weeks ago 4 bills which aim to protect the rights of property owners.
I've been working with Mark and Regina Meeks in Stockbridge. I know their concerns, and I think it would have been helpful to have had our input prior to this press conference and the submission of these bills.
The Democratic leadership held a press conference today saying previous attempts from Republicans to protect property rights have failed and that this attempt should be no different.
For them to try to stake out the high ground on eminent domain, we welcome, because had we not fought them on this last year and the Senate been so effective and us all speaking out against it, they would have had what they truly do and what they're now saying, I want to remind you, are two different things.
Now, House Majority Leader Jerry Keene says this bill will be open for changes from both parties as it moves through the House. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thanks so much, David.
The state Senate today passed a bill aimed at protecting children from email with adult content. Senator Greg Goggins spoke for Senate Bill 425.
It prevents messages from being sent, caused to be sent, conspired with a third party to be sent, the message if the primary purpose of that message is to advertise or induce the sale of a product or a service that a minor is prohibited by law from purchasing, viewing, possessing, participating in, or otherwise receiving. Who can register? A parent, a guardian, an individual, or any entity who is responsible for a contact point to which a minor may have access to. Schools and other industries or institutes may register one or more addresses, or they may register the entire domain. Let me give you a few points. This is completely voluntary. It's a self-funding law, whereas the marketeers who are doing the advertising have to pay a small fee to scrub their list.
Senate Bill 425, the Georgia Child, Family, and School Communication Protection Act, passed 49-0 and goes to the House.
Well, the House today agreed to provide uniform training and licensing to police officers before they use conducted energy weapons, also called tasers. The Taser Certification Act requires law enforcement officers to receive training and continuing education in taser use. Certification could be revoked if officers fail to maintain current training. Representative Joe Hextall wanted to add a provision to create a state log of those who have been injured or killed by tasers. Bill sponsors did not agree.
Statistically, more than 98% of the time, there are no injuries at all from the use of a taser. When in the less than 2% of the time that there are injuries, most of those injuries are skin, knees, cuts from falling on broken glass, and of the minor variety. And those statistics are being followed, and I'm sure will be looked at by the Post as they're working on this this training.
In response to Representative Hextall's question, which is a very good question, I really believe, Representative Hextall, we are covering what you actually are seeking that we do through amendment. If you look at in Section 1, starting with subsection C, all the way through E, I really believe that they will be required that all of the instances of taser use and abuse will be collected by post.
House Bill 1019 passed by a vote of 162 to 1, and it now moves to the Senate.
Today, the Senate Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee heard debate about a bill that would overhaul DUI law in Georgia. The bill is based on a work of the study committee designated by Governor Sonny Perdue. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us live with more on that story. Jesse.
Well, Gerald, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee did not vote on Senate Bill 502 today, though they did hear exhaustive testimony. Supporters of the bill, such as sponsor Senator Bill Hambrick, say it will simplify DUI and implied consent laws in the state.
When a suspected impaired driver refuses to be tested for alcohol or drugs, a law enforcement would now have an opportunity to go before a judge to get a warrant to get that testing done.
The biggest thing we're trying to do is we're trying to eliminate special rules for drunk drivers.
The thing about the implied consent and DUI laws thus far is that they are so convoluted. There are so many exceptions to the rule that we have actually lost the rule, in my opinion, in the process.
It is a very, very well-written bill. Many of the court decisions, such as increasing the language in the implied consent warning to the effect that if a driver fails to take the test, that can be used against them. And we have been charging the juries quite that time. And
what this bill does is it allows forcible blood draws. I'm going to say that one more time. What it allows is forcible blood draws. That means if a person chooses not to submit to a blood test, the law will allow under this statute, under these statutes, medical personnel at the direction of the law enforcement officers involved with the arrest of a person to hold a person down and to forcibly take their blood.
I'll guarantee you at the next meeting, if you ask any criminal defense lawyer to come speak again, you will never hear them say the bill's in a form that I'm happy with now.
Now, after hearing from trial lawyers groups, Committee Chairman Bryant Kemp said he wanted the committee to wait to vote after hearing more testimony on the matter. The bill could come up for a vote as early as next week. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thanks for the report, Jesse.
Governor Perdue's plan to reward effective school principals was passed by the Senate today. Senator Dan Moody explains how high-performance principals can increase their paychecks.
This legislation will allow the State Board of Education to establish a grant program to attract high-performance principals to our secondary schools that have been identified as a needs improvement school. Today, we have about 300 schools in the state that would qualify for this grant, and I hope you will agree with me that we need to find the best principals possible to improve student achievement at these locations. The grant totals $3 million, and it will be used to provide an annual salary supplement of up to $15,000 to recruit proven leaders to those schools that need them the most. The sole criteria for rewarding the supplement will be data-based evidence that the candidate has a proven record of raising a school's student achievement results.
Senate Bill 468, the grant program for high performance principals, passed 44-2 and goes to the House.
The Democratic Legislative Caucus continues to oppose another one of Governor Perdue's education initiatives. Today, House Minority Leader DeBose Porter was among those criticizing the governor's bill, mandating the school districts spend 65% of their funds in the classroom.
You already have a disparity. They've cut $1.2 billion from the formula that have already forced over 100 systems to raise their local property taxes, and this will do it again. The other point we want to make is look at the list of what's included. In other words, you can have athletics figured into it, but not your media center or your library. So it includes hula hoops or dodgeball. It does not include accelerated reader. It does not include the Georgia Book Awards. It does not include reading programs that are done in each classroom, in elementary schools through their local media centers.
That governor's bill has already passed the state Senate. Meanwhile, at a press conference today, Democrats also said it's time for Georgia to recognize the promise of stem cell research. They announced their support for a biomedical research bill.
Degenerative diseases include Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, macular degeneration, diabetes, and cancer. The Search for the Cure Act will do three things. First, it will create a tissue bank to safely store umbilical cord blood, placenta tissue, and embryos discarded from fertility treatments. Second, it'll create the Georgia Commission on Biomedical Research, which will establish and oversee the operation of the tissue bank. And third, the law would put in place a strong prohibition on human cloning.
Senator Edelman's Search for the Cure Act will be introduced tomorrow.
The Department of Community Health explained the new role of care management organizations in administering the state's Medicaid program at a House Health Appropriations Subcommittee this afternoon. The DCH commissioner told legislators that the program for the aged, blind, and disabled would require special attention.
This is not going to be something that's done by the department staff. It's actually something that has to be bid out. And what type of entity can actually cover all of these is something that we have to see. It may not be an entity, it may be several entities. But they would be tasked with actually addressing the needs across the population and not just a pilot site. We have, I think, close to 400,000 people in this affected population that we have to address. As far as an example of care, let's say that we're looking at our costs, and we know that, let's say, 19% of the Medicaid population is represented by the aged, blind, and disabled. We know that 55% of the expenditures of Medicaid are from that. Well, if you break it down further and look at the population by disease states and cost and utilization, we can actually figure out who we need to actually hone in on more with things like the disease management or care management.
The Department of Community Health said that increased tax revenues would have to be used to cover the growing population of Medicaid recipients.
Since May of 2005, there has been a significant increase in the number of families who have been denied the Katie Beckett waiver. That's a program that helps disabled children and their families attain Medicaid services from the state. Lawmakers' Matt Rasnick has the story of one Georgia family that is currently being denied.
The Katie Beckett waiver permits the state to ignore family income for certain disabled children and make Medicaid available to the child if they meet a certain level of care criteria. Without the waiver, the income of the family is counted when the individual is cared for in the home. Meet DJ. In many ways, he's a typical 10-year-old boy. He likes going to school and playing video games. But DJ is not a typical 10-year-old. DJ has Down syndrome, a commonly occurring chromosomal disorder that affects human development and produces health effects. For the past 8 years, DJ's parents have gotten vital services like speech, occupational, and physical therapies, in large part due to the Katie Beckett waiver. The program has also helped DJ's parents with staggering medical expenses, that is, up until last week when they received a final denial of services letter from the Department of Community Health.
He's almost 11 years old,
He's not potty trained. He does not know how to not walk into the street in front of a car. He cannot give himself medication. He can't even eat foods that you and I eat. I challenge anyone to say that someone that's almost 11 years old that functions at maxes out functioning at a 3-year-old level is not in need of services or close supervision of some type.
What they have done within the department and DCH is apply different guidelines. They have been applying adult guidelines to evaluate children who are very sick. And unfortunately, a lot of families in Georgia are being taken off the program.
The issue is that they're going one step further in their interpretation of the federal guidelines, and that's what we have an issue with at this point. These families are, the majority of them are middle class, hardworking, tax-paying, voting citizens that are trying to do the best they can with their children and keeping them out of institutions, which costs the state more money, and keeping them in their home.
Representative Jeff Brown of the Health Appropriations Committee stated that this is not a budgetary issue, that currently there are no cuts in the budget for the Katie Beckett waiver. The real concern is the state's interpretation of federal regulations. Representative Brown also stated that this issue will be resolved in the coming days and weeks. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Matt Rasnick.
And tomorrow night on Lawmakers, Matt has the story of another group representing children called Cure Childhood Cancer, who are also being denied the waiver. We encourage you to tune in for that story. Today, Governor Sonny Perdue signed a proclamation designating a week of childhood cancer awareness. Joining him at the signing was former Atlanta Brave pitcher Tom Glavine. The crafty southpaw is a spokesman for the Rally Foundation, which raises money for pediatric cancer research. Lawmakers' Jesse Freeman has the story.
The Rally Foundation is a nonprofit group that raises money for pediatric cancer research. They kicked off their Money in the Mitt effort with all-star pitcher Tom Glavine and his wife Chris.
Well, the big issue is funding. There's so much funding for cancer, but not as much of it gets to childhood cancer as other causes. Obviously there's a huge problem with breast cancer and prostate cancer and things of that nature, but it seems as though the adult cancers get much more attention than the childhood cancers do. And we've just tried to spread the awareness of the problem that childhood cancer presents and how many children really have the problem and are fighting the disease, and everything we can do to get a little bit more attention on that and get as much money as we can to continue funding it and continue the research to get us to the point where someday we have a 100% cure rate.
Governor Perdue signed a proclamation declaring the third week in September Childhood Cancer Awareness Week. He had some help from a young cancer survivor.
S-O-N-N-Y-P-E-R-D-U-E. All right. What's that name?
Senator Judson Hill sponsored a resolution in the Senate.
And the state Senate has also passed a resolution recognizing the Rally Foundation and the need for childhood cancer research to just bring more attention to this great need. And we're excited that the governor's proclaimed that week. We're excited to have the Glavines and Reed and Dean Crow, and more importantly, Will and Alexa, who are cancer survivors.
Tom Glavine and the Rally Foundation will continue their fundraising efforts at Major League Baseball camps when spring training begins later this month. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Jesse Freeman.
Well, in other news, a measure to allocate per diem payments to public service commissioners who live in districts more than 450 miles from the Capitol stalled in the House today after opponents argued that House Bill 1022 would serve only one commissioner, Doug Everett. First bill sponsor Ben Bridges explained the necessity of that action.
To continue the way it is now, they are actually making less than the other PSC members for whatever they have to pay out of their pocket to live here in Atlanta.
This gives a stipend and authorizes up to $40-something thousand of reimbursement expense to a constitutional officer who makes nearly $110,000. This takes money that you want to go home to your teachers and say, we're going to give you a $100 gift card, but we gave this member of the PSC a $45,000 expense reimbursement to come to Atlanta and stay at the hotel and have a big time on.
Action on the bill was suspended during a joint session of the House and Senate, and then...
So you may object to recommitting this and, shall we say, burying it deep in that committee. Is there objection? Anybody? Chairs none. House Bill 1022 is recommitted to the committee from whence it came.
House Bill 1022 now returns to the Appropriations Committee. The House today approved an incentive for the governor's land conservation program. House Bill 1107 provides income tax credits of up to 25% of market value for donations to the Land Conservation Trust. Individuals may receive up to $250,000 in credits and corporations up to $500,000. The measure passed without opposition and now moves to the Senate. In response to the arrest of a man last fall for selling a MARTA token, the House also voted today to make legal the sale of mass transit passes at face value. House Bill 954 passed 157-0, and it also heads to the Senate.
Major General William Webster addressed a joint session of the General Assembly today. General Webster was commanding officer for Georgia-based Army troops serving in Iraq.
I'm proud to report to you today that the 3rd Infantry Division team has completed all of its planned redeployment flights and is back at home at Fort Stewart, Hunter, and Fort Benning. The division The division used 113 aircraft to return the 24,000 soldiers to their families, friends, and communities. Task Force Baghdad, as we were known, centered on our 3rd Infantry Division, and it was comprised of units from 29 states, 3 territories, and 3 foreign nations. From February of 05 to January of 06, in combined operations with the Iraqis, we conducted 8 different major combat operations at the division level, including over 8,000 separate combat missions and more than 170,000 patrols, resulting in over 5,000 insurgent detainees. The pace of our operations was intense, and it disrupted the enemy, and it reduced the car bombs in Baghdad by half. We found nearly half of the roadside bombs, or the IEDs, that the enemy emplaced, and we had a 92% increase in the weapons caches found. And all of this put a big dent in the ability of the insurgents to conduct operations. I brought a few soldiers with me here today. They're great representatives of men and women who serve you every day. They contribute not only to our nation's defense, but to their local communities, and many of them are proud to call Georgia's communities home. I brought Command Sergeant Major William Grant with me today. Born in Sumter, South Carolina, Command Sergeant Major Grant's hometown is now Columbus. Just 2. Also, First Sergeant William Payne, a company first sergeant in a division support brigade who patrolled Baghdad on a regular basis. He is from Hinesville. And finally, Sergeant Michael McIntosh was part of a security squad, and he trained Iraqi policemen. Sergeant McIntosh is from Warner Robins.
House Bill 661 received a due pass recommendation from the House Education Committee today. It is based on the belief of some legislators that today's parents need more information from schools regarding after-school programs.
Busy parents of today, they need all the help we need. We need all the help we can get to be involved and know what's going on in the school systems. What this bill does is ask that the local school systems provide information in their handbook, or however the local school board determines, the different various clubs that their children, their minor children will or can partake in.
In addition to providing parents information about clubs offered, the new law will require all minor students to have the approval of their guardians in order to play sports or attend club meetings. Bill sponsor Representative Billy Reese spoke on why this measure is needed.
I just think the reason this bill is necessary is because just the busyness of the parents nowadays, that it's not that the parents don't care or don't want to be involved. It's just literally a lot of them are too busy, and they need every help they can get, especially from the state employees that salaries are paid by these taxpayers' money.
And that bill, if adopted, House Bill 661, will take effect during the 2006-2007 school year. Meanwhile, improvements at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport were the topic of Atlanta Aviation Day at the Capitol this morning. Airport leadership detailed projects which will be completed this year. Lawmakers' Katie Eubanks has this report.
This morning, as a part of Atlanta Aviation Day at the Capitol, Ben DaCosta, Aviation General Manager of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, informed the public of the current status of the airport's programs and projects, focusing on the construction of a 5th runway.
We are very excited that after years of planning and design and construction, we will open the most anticipated runway in the world because the flight activities at Atlanta Airport affect air travel across the continent and around the world. The 5th runway will cut the delays at Hartsfield-Jackson in half and actually reduce the cost to the airlines of over $5 million a week.
In addition to the completion of Hartsfield-Jackson's 5th runway, which is slated to open in May of this year, Mr. DaCosta also discussed a new consolidated car rental facility and the general economic impact of Hartsfield-Jackson on the state, which totals over $19 billion per year. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Katie Eubanks.
Well, the Stockbridge High School band performed for Lawmakers at the Capitol today. Here are highlights from their performance. Very fine group of young musicians. Well, coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, the Senate is scheduled to consider a measure that would establish Ronald Reagan Day in Georgia, and the House is expected to take up redistricting legislation. We'll have those stories, plus part 2 of our series about the Katie Beckett waiver program. That's tomorrow night at 7. If you've missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. Now stay tuned for Georgia Outdoors. That's coming up next here on GPB.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 15th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Gerald, Bryant.
And I'm Nwandi, Lawson. Thanks for joining us and have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.